Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to take a moment to say thank you. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, including Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. And Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. And we also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Thanks to our sponsors. Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Nicole Norris. Nikki is a certified athletic administrator, and she is the director of athletics at East Lansing High School in East Lansing, Michigan. Nikki, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, I hope things are going well for you in Michigan, and we're just happy to have you on the program. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and maybe how your love of athletics led to a career in athletic administration.
Well, I grew up in a little town called Ithaca, Michigan. Graduated with the biggest class at that point in history with 140 in our graduating class. So it was a small school. It was a great place to grow up. My mother was an elementary teacher. My dad was a high school administrator. And one of my earliest memories of my dad is being out in the backyard with him and my older brother, trying to teach me how to hit a ball. And through his coaching background and having siblings and in a small town, sports were very, very important. So I grew up playing everything possible. Went to Alma College and ran track there. And then as soon as I started college, I got a call from my high school volleyball coach who said, you should probably get into officiating. So I did. I started officiating at age 18. And whenever I wasn't coaching, I felt I had an obligation to the sport to go back and officiate. And so over the course of many years, through Alma College, I got a master's at Michigan State University and actually started coaching the year after I graduated from Alma College. I went back to get my teaching certificate and got hired on as the assistant volleyball coach. So I started right away. I loved it. It became a passion, and it's just another way. I was going into education anyways, and it's just another way to work with our students and really get to know them. So I coached for many years off and on, taught high school science. And as I was in Corona, Michigan, as a high school science teacher and volleyball coach, I got word that the athletic director was going to potentially retire or resign or switch jobs. And I was encouraged to apply for that job. So I did. That was 2010. I got hired as the AD there. I was there for 8 years. And then this is my third year here in East Lansing. And, every year it's just another eye-opening experience, but one that I truly love because I get to work with student athletes and coaches, and it's just another extension of teaching.
I got to ask, I'm an old track guy. What was your event in track? Yeah.
Well, the Open 400, and once I got to college, they taught me how to throw the javelin, so that was a hoot. We don't have the javelin in high school in Michigan, and for a very good reason.
Well, I was a high jumper and hurdler, and then when I got to college, ended up, my coach had me do the decathlon, which is great from a coaching standpoint. I learned all the events, so I know about that javelin too. Your coach ever tried to steer you into the multis?
We held a last chance meet one year. I know, not to qualify me, but we had a girl that was in the heptathlon, and I competed with her up to a certain extent to help pull her through the 200. And that was where, I high jumped in high school and That's where I learned at that event that I really was more of a low jumper than a high jumper.
Well, um, talk about that transition from the teaching coach to the world of athletic administration. What things did you feel, hey, I'm ready for this? And what were some other things that, maybe surprised you a little bit about the job?
From a professional development standpoint, I really enjoy still teaching my coaches or providing learning opportunities for them. So that was a natural fit. I don't think anyone really understands the job of an athletic administrator until you've been there. On the surface, if you're doing a great job, it looks like you're just sitting at games watching, but to know all the details that have to go into that event happening. I was fortunate. I had a great crew to work with and I had seasoned coaches, but I think it was very eye-opening to figure out all the things you have to do and the communication skills you have to have. So being an organized, task-oriented person helps, but you also have to become a great communicator, and you have to work with so many different groups of people that you have to be able to connect with. So I think that's the surprise when people get into the profession. But again, it's one of the most rewarding parts of the profession.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No 2 days are alike. We always talk about the importance of leadership in our world and mentoring. Who are some of your mentors, either teachers or coaches growing up, or maybe people that you worked with and worked for? The expression I like to use is, I still hear those voices in my head when I'm talking to a coach or a kid. So whose voice do you still hear?
My seventh grade science teacher was also my high school track coach, and I blame him 100% for getting me into education because he inspired me at the very beginning. And obviously my parents who were educators, very inspirational, very much positive role models. They were role models in the community. They were well respected. And I really wanted to grow up to be like them. So I think those are the early ones that shaped me. Once I got into this profession, there was a group that took me under their wing and said, what can we do to help you? And they set the stage for me to pass that along to the next crop of new ADs that, we're here to help each other. If we are successful, that means our student athletes are successful. So there's no ego in this job. You can't have an ego. You have to be there for the students. And so, my more current role models are those athletic administrators that are able to do it all and be successful and still have somewhat of a home life.
We were talking a little bit before the program, and I think it's important for our younger ADs that are listening to understand the journey that they should be on too. And so talk a little bit about your journey when you first became an AD to getting involved with your state association and then earning your CAA certification.
It's a never-ending journey, and you have to remember that there's always continuous improvement. But early on, my very first year, that core group in our conference said, hey, you need to join the MIAAA, you need to join the national organization, you need to get to a conference. And so I started taking those classes and just learned so much about the profession. So that's where I was motivated to get that CAA in my first couple of years. And it's been a little more difficult to finish my project for my CMAA, but it's very valuable. And I take as many of the LTC classes as I can. I've taught a few of them. I try and encourage all of our new ADs to get as involved as you possibly can, because our state organization is wonderful for providing opportunities for the young ADs, and just to have a network of people you can call, people you can pick up the phone and say, I had a new AD call me this morning and say, what are you doing for this? And how are you handling that? But even in my 11th year, I pick up the phone and call a lot of people and say, what about this? And, I'm thinking about changing and how are you handling that? So that journey continues, but we need to trust that we can rely on our peers and again, make it better for all of the students.
No, great points. The never-ending journey. We talk about this idea of best practices, and you kind of alluded to it, calling up an AD yourself and saying, hey, how do you do this? Or sharing something that you do well. So what's something that you're really proud of at East Lansing? What's something that you feel your coaches just really do a great job with?
My coaches love their kids, and that's the most important piece to any of this. They were very receptive when I came on board, and I try and make sure we have professional development opportunities within our staff throughout the course of a year. I try and meet with them more frequently than just before each of the 3 seasons, and we try and have full staff there. So even if it's an August meeting, my winter and spring coaches are there because there's going to be something in that meeting that applies to them. So we've brought in nutritionists, or we've brought in a speaker to talk about diversity. And sometimes you can use those opportunities to have your coaches lead the conversation. So if you have a coach that's gone to a conference and is really excited or is learning something new that would apply to all of us, sometimes they lead those conversations. So the dedication of our coaches to continually becoming better really, I think, makes this a special place.
Let's go ahead and jump ahead a little bit since you brought it up. One of the questions we've been asking our EDs since we started this back in June is along those lines of what can we do better? What can we do a better job in? And then kind of getting a laser focus on this idea of social awareness and social issues. So you alluded to it a little bit there, but what are some things that you feel that ADs can do a better job of in this area?
Well, I think you let it in very well with social justice. Our community here is quite diverse, very much more diverse than where I came from. And so I have a lot to learn. So I think continually having an open mind and listening. You need to listen to your student athletes. You need to listen to your coaches. You need to listen to your community. And we may not always have the answer, and that's okay. But having those conversations, I think, is the first step. We have students that have experienced a lot of social injustice, and it's a difficult conversation to bring up, to have the right words and ask the right questions. But if they know that you're willing to listen and work through it with them, I think that's very valuable to our students and to our community. So I think that's probably the most pressing issue right now, other than becoming an epidemiologist, is social issues and how can we support our students in their expression of their feelings towards what's happening in our world right now.
Yeah, you're so right. The social awareness, and of course, that obviously leads into mental health. And you opened the door for my next question. We've been asking ADs, how have they responded to, the COVID challenges? And in the, 4 or 5 months we've been doing these, we've seen all different kinds of responses. Some states have shut down sports completely. Others have gone ahead business as usual, and everything in between. So to our listeners, we're recording this in the latter part of November. So by the time you hear it, things hopefully will have changed for the better. But what's happening right now in Michigan and at East Lansing with regards to return to school as well as return to play?
Well, Michigan is currently on a 3-week pause in all activities and athletics. So our Department of Human Health and Services, a week ago yesterday, came out, so November 15th, came out and said, all high schools are now going to be remote in their learning. And in Michigan, at that point, we had the option. East Lansing, we've not been face-to-face since last March. Some school districts are fully face-to-face, some are remote, some are doing hybrids. So as of November 15th, all high schools had to go to remote learning. Some elementaries are still allowed to meet face-to-face. So that also included athletics and activities. We're allowed to have virtual meetings with our students, but nothing on site. So we're in the middle of the fall state tournaments. We still had a football team playing. Swim has not concluded their season yet, and volleyball are the three that still need to be finished. So we put them on a 3-week pause, and hopefully this pause ends December 8th, and that hopefully we can restart on December 9th, which we would then finish up the last 3 weeks of the football tournament and get volleyball and swim concluded. But that also then caused a delay in the start of our winter sports. We had girls basketball and gymnastics had been practicing. Boys basketball was set to start on November 16th, the day after this happened. And so they're all in a holding pattern, and we've delayed the start of any of those competitions until January 4th. So we're working with our state association. They've been very, very good, very creative, and very transparent. A week ago, we had a Zoom meeting with the executive director, Mark Ewell, who came on and outlined the MHSA's plans with the response to this pause. So, we went through a period in August where we weren't even sure we were going to have fall sports, and then we got them started a little bit later than normal. We got a good amount of the season in, but we're not quite finished. And the MHSA has committed to providing 3 seasons for our kids this year, a fall, a winter, and a spring, and we really want to get those state tournaments to conclusion so we can wrap up fall and move forward.
Well, that's an interesting approach. We were able in Florida, we, are moving into playoffs right now, and, are, kind of wrapping up, I guess, if you will, in the coming weeks, football and volleyball. And I think swimming just wrapped up recently, and cross country a week ago. I'm curious, going to your own fall sports, your home events, how is that from a management standpoint? Did you allow parents and did you allow fans? What percentage did they social distance on their own? Was there a lot of hands-on, or 6 feet hands-on?
Well, initially we were allowed 2 spectators per participant for indoor and outdoor sports. And then as the numbers looked pretty stable, they didn't seem to be increasing at too alarmingly of a rate, our governor allowed more spectators. So we were at one point, when we shut down, we were allowed at an outdoor venue to have 30% of capacity, or up to 1,000 people. So that allowed more people to attend. We still kept it small indoors. We could go up to 20% capacity indoors. But a lot of our families were the first on the list to get those 2 slots or those 4 slots. And they understood that this is what we have to do in order to continue to play. We need to wear our masks. We need to remain socially distant. Every AD across the state of Michigan had some sort of announcement for their announcer reminding people. But I saw great compliance, because our parents, our families wanted to see their student athletes compete. Everybody in Michigan had to wear a mask to compete. So that was an interesting new thing as an athletic administrator, that now I became a member of the mask police. It's just what we had to do. You had to remind soccer guys, pull up your masks but it's what we needed to do to get our kids the opportunity to play. So I think it went well. Now, if we get to restart in December, I assume those numbers will change. From a management perspective, only having 2 spectators per participant was much different. Same thing, that's the plan right now. Before the shutdown was going into the winter season for basketball and our indoor events. Again, we'd go back to 2 spectators per participant. And so that allows you a little more flexibility in your staffing of those events too. You may not need as many administrators on site for a big basketball game, because there's still only 2 spectators there. It also led to a lot more creativity in streaming of events. So,
that's very interesting about wearing your mask while competing. Is that going to be for basketball as well?
Yes, and I was just on a meeting with our assistant director for the MHSA in charge of wrestling, and wrestlers will have to wear masks. It's a statewide mandate.
I know I'm a basketball official here in Florida, and as an official, we just had a memo sent out, over the weekend, a reminder that we're supposed to wear our masks or our gaiters every minute that we are not officiating. So as we come to schools, in the locker room, when we come out on the floor pregame, we take them off when we're actually officiating. They're not asking the competitors to wear masks, but all bench personnel, players, coaches, table, they have to have masks on. So that's very interesting.
Every player, every participant, every worker, every official, everybody indoors has to have a mask on.
Let's go and lighten things up a little bit. I've been asking our athletic directors, the original question was, what's your favorite part of the job? And for the first, 2 or 3 months, it was always the same thing, as it should be. Oh, it's the kids. Love the kids. So of course you wouldn't do this job if you didn't love kids. So beyond that, what are some of the things that you really enjoy about being the athletic director at East Lansing? What gets you excited about coming to school each day?
Well, obviously the kids still is always going to be my number one answer, but the opportunity to visit practices and see our coaches teaching our kids, going back to being an educator, it's wonderful to be able to take the time to go just watch a practice and watch those coaches interact. I kind of joked about, if you're a really good AD, it looks like you're just sitting around watching games. Actually getting an opportunity to watch those kids compete, even if it's for a small snippet of time before you have to run on to the next fire to put out, is so enjoyable to see everything that they've worked toward and that they're now implementing those things successfully. It's been very difficult to come to work every day knowing you're not going to see kids, and that's the only interaction we have with them now is practices and contests. The building's empty and it's pretty lonely down here, but it's the right thing to do right now so we can continue to have games. So now that we've changed things, probably the most satisfying thing is to make sure that we have everything we need for them so the games can continue. I just look at my job as my task is to make sure that we have everything that they need from a safety perspective, from a health perspective, and all the tools to allow them to play those games. And whether that's going through today's checklist of ordering more disinfectant or, updating our website, whatever that is, so long as it leads to allowing our students to participate, it's a good part of the job.
I love a couple times today, you've kind of woven the idea or the theme of being a teacher of kids. And again, I just love that. I was a career teacher. I am a career teacher. I remember I was at a clinic once and I heard this, very quite well-known coach. I mean, he was a coach. He said that a teacher at his school once made the comment, oh, you're just a coach, you don't know what you're talking about or something like that. And his response, which I just loved, was, I'm a teacher. A coach is somebody who writes a book about something they were not successful at. I'm a teacher. And so
I love that. Yeah.
We're all coaches too, but I love that comeback. I've never had occasion to use it yet, but who knows? Well, Nikki, this has just been great getting to know you, but we're not quite done. We always like to wrap up with what we call the new athletic director's toolbox. You're certainly an experienced AD, and right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Nikki Norris's athletic director toolbox?
That's a tough one. Number 1 tool, pick up the phone, contact veterans, ask for help. Absolutely number 1. Number 2, I would say join your state association and take advantage of all the opportunities that exist for national level courses, professional development, to sit in the room with people that have done the job. And I guess the third one is all-encompassing, utilize technology, create a system that allows you to be organized and improve your communication skills. Some sort, and it's different for everybody. It really is. And it took me a couple years to figure out. I've got a big chart on my wall that is an Excel document that has every event and it's all color-coded because that works for me. Boy, only 3 is tough, but I think those are a start.
Oh, and those are all great, great resources. I have my binder, my hard copy binder with every event written in and
Mhm.
scratched out and whited out. I also have it on Excel, but I'm lost without that binder.
Yep. And as things change, now I put it in a Google Doc and I can take it to all my meetings. And so you're sitting in a meeting, you know what your schedule is for the next 2 years. And you know, incorporate things like homecoming and dances and exam week. So, you know, not to make of a huge faux pas and schedule a big event in the middle of exams. And so it's a lot to keep track of.
No, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm going to whine a little bit right now. That drives me crazy when we do our calendar meetings at our school. The performing arts people. Well, okay, when's the school play going to be in next February? Well, we don't know yet. We're trying to schedule games so we don't conflict with you. Help us out. So.
Right. And so in a world where our job is all about scheduling, you know, weeks, months, years out, sometimes, and especially right now, we have to change. You just have to be a master of flexibility. And, we went from a regular wrestling season down to basically an 8-week season, which then got shortened by this pause. So we got to put our heads together and figure it out, and we will.
That's right. Make it work. Yeah. Well, Nikki, thanks again for being on. All the best as this pause turns back into regular schedules. And who knows, hopefully we'll see each other in a virtual LTI course here in a couple of weeks.
I hope for that. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to when we can have face-to-face LTI courses again.
Absolutely. Well, to our listeners, thanks as always for tuning in. Remember, these episodes are also available on the FIAAA Educational AD YouTube channel. So you can not only listen, but see these great ADs that share their wisdom with us. Thanks to everyone, and come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD.